What's going on, guys? Today we're looking at a bit of a retracement day, a little bit of red after seeing an amazing day yesterday. A lot of cryptos, a lot of Bitcoin miners up 20% and more, a lot of double-digit movers. Pretty good day all around, but funny enough, not a good day for the general market necessarily. To me, that's a good sign. Bitcoin is doing its own thing. Bitcoin is following its cycle like it always has. And Bitcoin did have its best day ever on Monday. Ran all the way to nearly 90,000, breaking the record for the biggest single day gains in USD. And Bitcoin gained $8,343 over the course of Monday. This is the largest single day jump for Bitcoin. And Alex Thorne here has a chart that shows basically that yes, yesterday was the top day with an $8,343 daily move, with the next best day being in 2021 in February. Kind of interesting, eh? Perhaps in 2025, somewhere around February, January, we see another record day. Wouldn't be surprised as the FOMO kicks in. And while this is the biggest move in dollars, it is not the biggest move in percentage, however. It takes number 49 for that. And one thing to realize is as Bitcoin gets larger and larger, these percentage moves will be smaller and smaller, although still amazing. As assets grow and stabilize, there will be less volatility. And honestly, I think that is a good thing for Bitcoin. And when you look at crypto as a whole, the whole crypto market actually hit a new all-time peak value above 3.15 trillion. And that came in early Tuesday. This broke the previous 3.07 trillion back in 2021 at the peak. I wonder where we'll peak out at this cycle. Will we see a $4 trillion market cap, market value as a whole? I think so. 5 trillion? I think it's possible. And let me remind you guys that Bitcoin is doing what it has always done after an election, after the halving. One thing that I want to add that's interesting is the halvings and elections are getting farther and farther apart. That might cause some interesting different patterns in the cycles moving forwards. It is something to ponder about. But when you look at 2012, the first halving and the election, they were very close and we saw a spike right after. Second halving, president election, we saw a spike right after, and a spike right after the halving. Third halving and the election, we saw a spike right after the election, and it ran up after the halving. And now the fourth halving, we did run up after the halving, although there was a retracement first, and we just got through the election. And every past election, we have seen a run regardless of the president choice. The cycle is playing out as it always does. And for anyone just getting into Bitcoin, for anyone just wanting to learn, like, the best thing to look at in terms of Bitcoin, I would say look at the halvings, look at the 4-year cycle. Those, in my opinion, are the best things to learn if you're looking to invest in Bitcoin and you're looking to kind of know when to trim and know when to buy. The 4-year cycles basically gives an amazing indication of what to do there. And combining the 4-year cycle with some knowledge on chart, with some knowledge on market psychology, and you almost can't lose. But we have some great news coming from Ethereum as well, that Ether ETFs hit a record in inflows, and we saw the largest net inflow from these Ethereum spot ETFs since their introduction, adding almost $300 million. And here's something that wasn't mentioned in the last article. Bitcoin took silver as the 8th largest market cap asset. And here it is, guys. Assets ranked by market cap. Gold is number 1 at a 17.5 trillion. Followed by Nvidia at a 3.6 trillion, Apple 3.3, Microsoft 3.1, Google 2.2, Amazon 2.1, Saudi Aramco 1.8, and then we have Bitcoin. Bitcoin is on its way to take number 7 in my opinion. And by the time the cycle's over, I mean, we could be pushing number 4, pushing number 3, maybe coming up towards gold. I don't think we're taking gold obviously this cycle, but I see no reason why Bitcoin can't take some of these mega cap companies in terms of market cap. It is over Tesla, it is above Meta, it is now above silver, and I do think as Bitcoin continues its bull run, we will see it take some of these names over. Even if we see an overall bull run for all of these assets, I think Bitcoin will move at an exponential pace. But let me know where you guys think Bitcoin is going to end up in terms of top market cap. Is it going to be number 1 this cycle? Is it going to be number 2? Is it going to end up at number 5? Let me know what you guys think. Or is this as good as it gets and it's going to fall from here? Let me know in the comments below. But anyways, getting back to this article before this becomes too long of a thing to edit, Bitcoin's ETF netted a $1.1 billion inflow, which is the second highest amount on record. IBIT saw 765 million of inflow. Fidelity's FBTC saw 131 million. And look at this, assets in the US spot Bitcoin ETFs are now up to 84 billion. They're on their way. They are knocking on that 100 billion in assets. It is coming probably before the end of the year, I would say. This is 2/3 of the way to what gold ETFs have. That is crazy. All of a sudden, there's a decent shot that they surpass gold before their first birthday. We predicted that this would take 3 to 4 years. MicroStrategy hit a record high. Coinbase top 320 for the first time since November of 2021. The excitement is coming to crypto and crypto assets, and this is the time to be excited. This is the time to follow the cycle. This is the time to, yes, be excited, like I said, but also be calm. Don't catch FOMO. Don't start suddenly now getting the inkling to start just throwing everything into Bitcoin. You should have been doing that. Is it still a good DCA? Of course, a Bitcoin, in my opinion, is always a good DCA. Are the miners, the Bitcoin miners, still a buy? I do think so. Just try not to chase them after crazy 20-30% days. And just look at Bitcoin on the chart. We broke this channel that I was showing you guys, and we didn't let off. We just went on a crazy rally all the way nearly to 90,000 before losing some steam. This 90,000 is likely to be an important resistance. It is a psychological one. It is 10K from 100K, which is going to be our next huge psychological resistance, 100K. I don't think it's going to be as easy as people think. It's not just going to be a straight shot and we fly away. There are going to be little, consolidation before a break over, maybe a test as support. Some people are saying we're going to see 150K by year end. Some people are saying we're going to see over 100K. I'm still on the fence personally. Remember, Bitcoin does the unexpected. Once everyone thinks something is sure to happen, that's when we start hitting a snag. That's when we start pulling back. And remember how long it took us to break. We broke a new all-time high when the spot ETFs went live. But look how long it took us to finally break over that. Perhaps we consolidate a while and it takes a couple weeks to a month to break over 90. Following Q4, following past cycles, I would expect this is going to be a quick run, probably towards 100,000. Judging by past cycles, Q4 is always exciting for Bitcoin. Q4 always sees a good rally, with exception of 2012. 2012 wasn't as amazing. It was good, but I can chalk that up, in my opinion, to Q3 being really good for 2012. Whereas in all other halving cycles, Q3 has been pretty lackluster, and Q4 is where things really get exciting again. That is kind of what we're exactly looking at here. Where Q3 we saw that, pullback, the spot ETF hype kind of died down. We saw a little bit of retracement. We saw Mt. Gox fear. We saw some selling off. We saw, a clear broadening pattern, just trying to sell off. Bull flag, I would call it, and that's what it turned out to be. Massive bull flag that once we broke out of it, we did go on a crazy tear. Keep in mind, Bitcoin is obviously overbought, and you don't see it much more overbought than this. Occasionally you do. Keep in mind we can consolidate before running more. Just because it's overbought, like I've told you in the past, just because it's overbought doesn't mean it has to sell off and go back to 70,000, for example. It can consolidate before running again and becoming even more overbought. One thing to look out for is the RSI divergences. And so far, it looks like the RSI is following Bitcoin's price. We aren't getting any divergences that I'm noticing on larger time frames. But when you look at the hourly, you'll see that we double topped here yesterday, but the RSI just dropped off a cliff. That is a RSI divergence, bearish. You saw level out on the price, whereas the RSI cooled down. And this did bring a little short-term drop. That doesn't mean we're just going to keep selling off, but this was a sign that we were due to cool down just a little bit. I want to see us consolidate. I want to see us also hold this 85, psychological numbers, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, by increments of 5,000. Those are going to be also psychological numbers, obviously, along with 90,000 and 100,000. I do think 85K will be an important psychological level to hold. If we break that, we might test 82. Now, I might test 80. Keep in mind how far away we are now from these moving averages. Let me show you an example. When you get a little too far, usually there is a retracement to the mean. Let's go back to our rally here on the spot ETF hype. You got a nice run, but once you get a little too far from that 200 MA, you do eventually retrace. You get a little far away, you do eventually retrace. There are going to be times where you get extended away from the 200 MA to the upside. There are going to be times where you get extended from the 200 MA on the downside. Typically, you want to buy Bitcoin when it's in the extreme to the downside. Also, depending on where you are in the cycle, obviously, though. Look for those RSI divergences, whether bearish or bullish, and be aware that Bitcoin is going to consolidate. Some healthy consolidation is good. I would like that. That is fantastic. We don't want it to just keep spiking without establishing any potential future levels of support. If we just keep spiking, we start dropping, the likelihood of being able to bounce at these levels is much lower, because if we just keep running up, they aren't going to establish as support or resistance zones. I think this is healthy to see, and this is just simply some consolidation for Bitcoin after one of its record days. Looking at Sphere 3D, it's actually seeing a good day today. Very few Bitcoin miners are doing well today. This isn't why I'm talking about them. According to TradingView, they have earnings today along with Bitfarms and Mara. So keep an eye on earnings. I'm not sure if this is actually reporting earnings because when I go to their site, there's no mention of earnings. There's no official date yet. This could just be, a generated date based on last earnings per TradingView. So keep an eye on investor relations. You'll usually have notification of earnings before like official earnings on here. So maybe Sphere 3D is reporting earnings, maybe not, but in the end, watch for Bitfarms and Mara because they are reporting earnings, and forward guidance will be key. I don't think they're going to give great numbers based on Q3, but Q4, meaning October, November, December, where Bitcoin started running, this quarter should be really good. Forward guidance should be really good. Forward guidance should bring a lot of these Bitcoin miners now to profitability. The excitement will continue. Looking at Sphere 3D, it finally broke over a zone I've been watching, a previous resistance area. It has found it as resistance back in 2023 before at multiple times. It has found it as a support. That is why I think there is some value to this area. It is not perfectly lined up. Obviously, this looks more legit right about right here somewhere. But, this is kind of a zone that has been utilized as a support, as a resistance zone before. And now we are above it. What I want to see is if we do pull back, do we hold above this, 150-ish, 165 area and start consolidating? Get a nice little bull flag perhaps. After a crazy run like this, keep in mind, Sphere 3D has ran a lot in short time. In September, early September, it was a 69-cent stock. It is now $1.75. So keep in mind, there will be pullbacks. We see these spikes and then they pull back. When things get crazy, they can get really crazy. Keep in mind, we're in a different environment than 2020. We don't have anywhere near what's going on with stimulus, with people at home and doing nothing, bored, people looking to invest. It is a totally different environment. But look at last cycle. It runs and it does not let off. There are little consolidations and cooldowns along the way, but just look at how much it runs without seemingly letting off. And let me remind you guys, Sphere 3D never reached these prices. This is split adjusted. Yes, it is a risky stock. It is going to pump. It is also going to dump. It is something you don't want to hold long term. It is something you want to swing trade based on the 4-year cycle. You want to be out of this at some point in mid to late 2025, maybe earlier if you want to be extra careful. This thing will spike like crazy, but it will also dump. It is not profitable and it might not ever be. If Bitcoin keeps rallying, maybe by the peak it's profitable. But this is definitely one of the highest risk Bitcoin miners to be in. It is very small market cap, but that also means it can rally crazy when the hype does draw in. I do think once we can hold above, and there's clear signs that we are holding above, this is going to be kind of an interesting, important, kind of a flipping point where things get more bullish. We've been under this resistance for quite a while. I think once we break it and hold it as a support, we will see a nice run. Look at the reaction on a good breakout, the reaction on us holding it, the reaction on us breaking it. There is a clear reaction, not always, but generally. So I do think this area is important to watch, this roughly 165, 150 area. But let me know how you feel about a day like today. Is this a day to take advantage of the pullback after a crazy green day like yesterday? Or are you already all set and bags packed, ready to go? I do think it's getting later and later into the cycle. The multiples are obviously getting diminished. You can't really expect like a 5x from Bitcoin anymore necessarily. You can't really expect 10x from most of the Bitcoin miners necessarily. That said, I think there's still plenty of gains to be had. Just be patient. Just know we are getting later into the cycle. With some assets, you might want to set stop losses. But following the cycle, we should be looking at another 6 months to around a year of some great times. There will be pullbacks along the way. But in general, Bitcoin, crypto miners, MicroStrategy, Coinbases, all Bitcoin proxies are going to trend up. And it is going to be very exciting times. And we're going to be happy to be in Bitcoin. Following the cycle, we have some of the most exciting times ahead of us. But the reality is, the best times to buy Bitcoin was during the bear market when Bitcoin was 15, 20K. You're going to make so much more multiples off of Bitcoin like that than having to buy Bitcoin at 60, 70,000. Like I said, there's still plenty of fun to be had. But just realize, the goal is to accumulate during crypto winter. You get so much more multiples that way. It is definitely difficult to do. It is definitely stressful, especially depending on where you start buying. If you're buying while things are still trending down, but in the end it all works out. And following the cycle, the best thing you can do is accumulate while it's low, accumulate while no one wants it, accumulate it while people are saying Bitcoin's going to 10K and it's at 20K, accumulate it when people are saying Bitcoin's going to fail, while you have companies like BlackRock applying for spot Bitcoin ETFs. Follow the big money. The big money is usually what's going to set the trends, and big money loves Bitcoin. Big money realizes Bitcoin is an asset that we might never see again. An asset that is capped in supply, and the incoming supply, what's left of it, the 5% left, 4% left that we're going to receive over the next 100 years or so, that supply gets cut in half every 4 years. The vast majority of Bitcoin is already in circulation. Institutions, retailers, we are all fighting for that last scrap of Bitcoin. And I know there's a lot of people that mention, why is Bitcoin not moving up if there's such big ETF inflows? Well, one reason this is because it's bought over the counter. It doesn't affect prices much. But make no mistake, when Coinbase starts running out of Bitcoin to sell, what is going to happen? There is going to be a huge supply shock. And that sometimes makes me think maybe we will see some really, really crazy prices for Bitcoin. Maybe we don't see the supply shock that we're hoping for, but Bitcoin still does overall great. But realize, there is less and less Bitcoin on exchanges. It keeps dwindling away. And, we are looking at some very exciting times. Sorry, I keep rambling on. Thanks, as always, for watching, guys. Let me know where you think Bitcoin will end up in terms of global market cap. Where on this list will it lie? Thanks, as always, for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.